Wait. Have we really held secret contacts and secret talks with Ruben Amorim? Today, my friends, I'm here to discuss some massive stories that's dropped today as we are gearing and getting closer now to the summer window. It seems like not only will we see changes to our squad, but potentially in the management for next season. So my friends, sit back, relax, and let's break through and dissect the latest stories that have dropped today. Now let's get the quick story out the way first, and courtesy of Italian journalist Alona Trotta. She writes that we have been surveying Genoa manager in Thiago Motta, and she reports that we have made contact with him over the past few days. Now she says that nothing is at any advanced stages at this point in time. It's purely initial contact, and I'd imagine that you want to see where Thiago Motta's head's at. Now currently we know that he's supposed to believably be in advanced talks now with Juventus to replace Allegri for next season, but technically nothing is set in stone right now. Nothing has been confirmed or agreed upon. Juventus will have to pay Allegri a lot of money to rescind the final years of his contract. They'll have to pay money to Genoa to, of course, buy Thiago Motta from them. And with Juventus, they have to be pretty responsible with their spending. You know, paying over 50 million to sack and replace your manager, that's not easy money for them. So I guess it's no surprise that reports are coming out that other clubs are potentially looking to hijack any deals for Thiago Motta, with reports in Italy suggesting that AC Milan are seeing him as a replacement to Stefano Pioli as well too. And to be honest, like if Thiago Motta was set to remain in Serie A, I'd rather he goes to an AC Milan to work with your Rubens and Tomoris and co, to be honest with you, compared to Lopetegui coming in and just kind of messing everything up. It seems like Thiago Motta is going to be a very popular manager this summer. He's in very high demand, and I'd imagine that right now he's in a situation where he can assess all offers coming his way. Still, thinking about why nothing is at any advanced stages for Motta, listen, it makes a lot of sense. I think before we really fully decide who the potential replacement is, we need to get the full blessing and understanding that they want to come to us to begin with. But we already know from reports from Matt Law and in this country that top managers are still very much excited about possibly taking us over and working here. So it does seem like we could maybe get some pretty interesting names if Pochettino does get replaced. But we can't forget, Pochettino is still very much loved by the squad. Pochettino does have some small support behind the scenes, and could they possibly try and help keep their man? They could argue that Pochettino's season has been really hit by the amount of injuries that he's had to work with, which isn't going to help him, of course, when it comes to building his ideas and methods across this team. But time will tell, because there is no smoke without fire in this game, yeah? And the fact that we are now getting more reports of interest in other managers, it does also possibly say something about the future of Pochettino. So my friends, let's wait to see if anything else happens with this Thiago Motta story. Personally, I'd be very surprised, but I think this story segues in perfectly now to the second big story that's dropped today. Has it been revealed that we held secret meetings with Ruben Amorim last week? Today, my friends, big stories dropped today, but before I discuss that, let's discuss the backstory currently around Ruben Amorim. Now, last week we learned that he held meetings with both West Ham and Liverpool, but since then, Liverpool are set to hire Arne Slot, and it's believed that Ruben Amorim turned down the strong interest from West Ham. Now recently, Amorim came out to publicly apologise for holding talks last week. I'd imagine that he was hoping to keep things under wraps and keep things very secret. Now, I'm going to give you guys some context around this, because a few years back, I released this big video at the time discussing this secret meeting between our owners and Maurizio Sarri. Now, this took place around March, and during that time, Napoli were very much in the Scudetto race. And obviously, if anything was publicly kind of just revealed that Sarri, the Napoli manager, was holding talks with other clubs during a peak defining part of Napoli's season, it's not going to communicate very well to anyone, right? But what I'm trying to say is that this is simply how this game works, where managers have to also think about their careers, and it comes down to details like timing, because realistically, you're not going to hold conversations once the season ends to discuss where you're going to next move, because you need time to not only settle into a new country, you need to then decide what's the best proposition for you? What's the best club to sign for? And once you do that, you need preparation time to understand how your methods are going to work, the players you need. There's all these details in the build-up anytime managers are about to take over a new club. So realistically, there is going to be like a crossroad period where managers will have to also focus on their current job whilst also keeping their minds on their future jobs for next season. So I think in Amorim's case, obviously it's not good that he got caught, but it's not an unusual thing. These things happen. But today we had a very interesting story that was revealed by Portuguese journalist Pedro Sepulveda, and he reports that we secretly were the ones to fund Ruben Amorim's trip to London. He says that on the 22nd of April last week, we held talks with Amorim and board members. And it comes out that talks with West Ham were actually fake and a smokescreen. It was a guise. And we see Amorim as the successor to Mauricio Pochettino. Now, I know I'm saying quite a lot. We need like at least a few seconds to process this information. A part of me thinks to myself, like, are Chelsea FC even that smart to be, doing up these like Heisenberg schemes when it comes to appointing the next new manager? Am I just being too cynical? I don't know. But maybe on the other hand, let's try and like accept for a second that this is the reality. Why would we move like this? I guess on one hand, it's a delicate situation between the player's relationship with Pochettino, and you don't want to jeopardize that publicly. You don't want to undermine the manager publicly. You don't want to disillusion the players that already reports are coming out that we are set to hire a new manager. Clubs don't want to do that. I guess equally this gives us a bit more wiggle room to see whether Pochettino can turn things around, but I guess at the moment that most likely isn't the case. And I guess ultimately, what is the best approach to potentially hiring someone else for next season whilst keeping things under wraps and keeping things respectful? It does mean that you're going to have to move in the shadows. You're going to have to keep things very discreet. And this isn't something abnormal in football. I gave you guys that example of what we did exactly with Mauricio Sarri, where we held meetings with him in London months before he actually hired for us later that summer. And to be honest, I would not be surprised that the club now are going to try and move a lot more discreetly because too much of our plans are publicly revealed. Too many things get leaked. It can't be a good situation. But anyway, before I continue on, it came out by Matt Law that actually, in fact, the club have absolutely denied any possibility that they held meetings with Ruben Amorim. But remember, the report mentioned that Amorim held talks with certain board members. We don't know who these guys are or anything like that. It could be very informal conversations, right? Because that's what happens in this game. And let's keep things real. Obviously, the club are going to deny that if they're publicly backing Pochettino, right? So let's see what happens. I'm really curious to see what other reports come out around this story. Like already, I'm brainstorming so many questions. I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's say if we are going for Amorim, does this mean that we are now settling on using a back three system? Because that is the system in which Amorim is finding a success with Lisbon. On the other hand, does that mean that we may slow down our approach when it comes to deciding the fates of players before the successor manager even has an opportunity to see them? And I say this because let's say Amorim was to come in next season. I think Ian Maatsen is the perfect left wing back for Amorim's ideas. And I can't imagine we just discard Maatsen just like that. On one hand, you think, okay, if you're going to sign Amorim, surely you're bringing in his top dog, his main man in Victor Gyökeres. 40 goals, 16 assists, Victor Gyökeres, who's essentially leading Sporting Lisbon to their first title in like the last handful of years. Or, my final thing is, could Amorim also adapt his methodology with this club and with our players? So there's so many things to think about right now. I'm going to let you guys have some of these discussions in the comment section. Where's your heads at? How do you feel about this? Do you think Amorim is the perfect successor to Pochettino? Please share your thoughts and opinions below right now. Now we have another big, interesting story to discuss, courtesy of Simon Phillips, and he reports that at the moment, Chelsea are believed to be holding internal discussions of the possibility of making a move for Man City's Jack Grealish. Now, for this story, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a heads up. I'm going to have a bit of like a devil's advocate approach when I have this discussion, because you guys know, if I'm going to use a word from football therapy, I try and have some like salient conversations. I think it's too easy to have conversations where it's like black and white. This guy's crap, not worth discussing. This guy's good. overhype him up, etc, etc. So for this story, I kind of want to understand why the club could be holding internal discussions, because it just confirms that at least Grealish may be on the shortlist, and it also confirms the type of profile of attacking player we're hoping to sign for the summer window. Now, on one hand, Jack Grealish has that Premier League experience. He's 28 years old. He's been winning trophies at Man City. He's one of the best players, offensive players in the league over the past few years. And you could argue that after spending time working under Pep Guardiola, working with a higher level and caliber of player, he technically is probably a better player right now than what he was at Aston Villa. On one hand though, he would be incredibly expensive. Rumours suggest that maybe bids of around 60 million could be enough to tempt Man City, but on the other hand, Grealish is earning around 12.5 million a year. He's on like a ridiculous deal and contracts. So I wonder what type of negotiations we could find with him, how much of his image rights he gets to keep, all those types of details. Now I know if you were to go straight on who scored or FB ref, whatever, you're looking at the stats, they're not going to turn you on. I get that. Let's not disregard the context. Grealish has had a lot of injuries this season, a lot of groin strains, muscular strains, illnesses, hamstrings as well too. And at a club like Man City, you have 2-3 other replacements that are ready to play over you straight away, who are going to find their form. If he was at Aston Villa with these injuries, he would simply come back and he'd be given like 3-4 games to refine his form. It just don't work when you're playing for the best teams in the world. But if you look at things a bit deeper, if you ignore the lack of goals and assists that don't always necessarily determine the worth and value of players, I think at times we have to move past this very basic way of analysing the quality and worth of players by simply boiling everything down to how many goals or assists they have. It's too surface. But if we look at things a bit deeper, there's a reason why Grealish ranks incredibly high for things like progressive carries, touches in the books, pass completion rate, passes received, etc, etc, and that's because Guardiola has a specific use for him. And you have to remember, when clubs sign players, they're not just signing them for their goals and assists. They sign them because they think about how they complement what already exists, who already is at the club, how they can bring a better balance tactically, for example. And here's a quote from Guardiola when he was discussing Jack Grealish himself, and he said last year, listen, we didn't sign for the incredible goals or assists at Aston Villa. It was another reason, and when he played, he did it. I want him to make goals and assists, and he does too, but it's not about that. It's about his contribution without the ball and what he can produce for the other ones. And that's the most important thing, and that's the main point I want to focus on. If you're signing a Jack Grealish right now, you're signing him for the balance he brings to the team and how he makes other players better. Because think about it like this. Let's say hypothetically it's 4-2-3-1 next season. You have your 4 attacking players. Now traditionally, most clubs tend to have their main goal output coming from like at least 3 players in the team. You can't have any more, otherwise you're too offensive. There's not enough balance. You're going to be porous defensively, etc, etc. So outside of your 3 main goal productive players, the rest of the squad just supplements and supports with their goals. And in an attack like that, a Jack Grealish is the balance. And he's the balance because of his combination plays. His reliability in the final third, the ball sticks to him. He doesn't waste it, hence why he has a very high pass completion rate. It's about how he releases other players into space. And you think about how his game could work balancing alongside your Palmers, let's say your Nikos or a new striker, and let's say your right winger like a Noni, who's going to have more goal threat than a Jack Grealish. Look at how we play right now, Mykhailo Mudryk. We try to make him that outlet player on the left hand side, but he is a turnover merchant. He doesn't reliably keep possession. He puts the team under pressure, and it's just like, it's no surprise why we concede so many goals from our left hand side. It's no surprise why our left hand side has been so weak this season, because we're getting dispossessed time and time again. It doesn't help support the left back who wants to get involved. It doesn't help the midfield players. If you have, let's say, like a Kukuman inverting or an Enzo Fernandez playing more offensively on the left-hand side, you want a Jack Grealish that can combine with them, that can reliably keep possession of the ball, that can combine with them, that can attract fouls, taking away the tempo and pressure from the opposition. And you want that composure he brings in tight spaces, because Grealish is very good playing in very tight spaces. You wouldn't necessarily need Jack Grealish to get you like 15 goals, 15 assists. He's not that type of player. And if you want that, then he's playing at a worst club like an Aston Villa where he has the license to do what he wants because he is comfortably the best player there. So I find it very interesting that a player of Grealish's dimensions is only being discussed right now. Now listen, if I could pick anyone, I'm probably going for like a Kvaratskhelia or a Rafael Leao, where, you know, Rafael Leao isn't necessarily even about goals or assists. It's about everything else he does that helps bring quality and new ideas and threat for his teams, right? But I gotta be realistic. Do we have like unlimited money again? And is there a big chance we can sign these guys? Maybe not. But we have to address some of the concerns in the team. And I think right now, we need that player that has that composure and dribbling reliability in our team, especially down that left-hand side. And this is where, for the sake of conversation, Grealish is a pretty interesting player to discuss. So my friends, share your thoughts and opinions about this story. Do you want to see Jack Grealish here next season? Do you think he's good enough? Let us know below. And obviously, I can't end this video without discussing the big story of yesterday. Unfortunately, I just wasn't about yesterday to make any videos, but we say our farewells to Thiago Silva, our cult hero. He isn't a club legend, he hasn't been here for enough years, but he is a cult hero based on his incredible performances, his overall class, his temperament, and just the overall quality that he's brought to this football club. Obviously, it was a very emotional farewell. He was in tears recording the video. He says how much he's loved his time at this club, and he's loved it here so much, in fact, that he was very surprised of, actually, that once his playing career is over, he's actually thinking to come back to London, to settle in London, because him and his family like it here that much. And as Thiago himself said, this isn't a goodbye, it's a see you soon, because he's hoping to come back to the club in some type of, you know, capacity, whether that's like coaching or like a board level or anything like that. And I like to think that we can create that role for him. You know, we have this thing at our football club where players come here and they absolutely love it here. They love the lifestyle, they love the connections, the people, etc., etc. That's a very good selling point that we have. And I also like the fact that you have footballers who know the game holding certain capacities within clubs. I think you look at all the great clubs across the world, lots of former players have roles in a board level or a coaching capacity. And I think that's where you build that, you know, continuity in those future seasons. But, you know, I'd say Thiago Silva ranks among some of the best defenders I've seen. And we've seen some excellent defenders as fans, right? You're looking at Desai, you're looking at John Terry. For me, still the best defender I've ever seen. Rudiger, Luiz, Carvalho. I mean, you can go on. There's been an abundance of great defenders, even caught ones like Alex. Like, no one's had a better long shot than Alex ever at this football club. And we've been very blessed and lucky to watch some of the best defenders that Europe can offer playing for us on a weekly basis. I think Thiago has been an absolute sensation, one of our best buys in our history, coming on a free transfer. And, you know, the thing is, he's leaving us not even digressing as a player, because he could easily be here again next season. But I do think for where the club has to go right now in terms of how we have to shape our future, I think it's a responsible thing. But again, I respect Silva because he could have left us in January, but he decided to stay here until the end of the season. And most likely now he's set to go back to Brazil to play for Fluminense. So Thiago Silva, thank you for the incredible service, performances and class over the years. And it will be an emotional farewell when we finally part temporary ways with Silva at the end of the season. So my friends, share your favorite Thiago Silva memory. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. And I'll probably see you guys later on today. So obviously keep those notification buttons on. So my friends, I'm Nini FC. This is BlueLionsTV. See you all later. Cool.